What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS video, and today we're going to be discussing what you can do to get started for the Scalebreaker patch that's coming up this Monday. So this video is a little bit late coming out, however I believe it was in the best best interest in order to get the most up-to-date information based on the current Scalebreaker PTS patch notes 5.1.4 before I release this video here. So in this video we'll be going over DPS roles, that would be Stamina DPS and Magic DPS, and then tomorrow's video will be going over support roles, which would just be the healers and the tanks. Now do note here that I will be going over, specifically for Stamina DPS, dual wield, two-hand, and bow builds, all three of those different types of builds. Magic DPS, since you guys typically will only use two staves, you guys will just get that one build advice instead. So we're going to start things off here first with the dual wield build, move on to the two-handed builds, and finally the bow builds, and then we'll move on to Magic DPS with your changes that you're going to anticipate making in Scalebreaker. So for all four roles here, keep in mind that the way that they've standardized damage over time abilities basically means that single target dots are going to be a lot stronger and a lot more potent than AoE dots. Some AoEs are still going to be pretty strong, so things like Blockade, Lightning Flood, Endless, or not Endless Hail, no, but Arrow Barrage, those are still here to stay, but a lot of other AoE abilities have kind of been phased out, so expect to see a lot more single target damage over time abilities on your bars now compared to in elsewhere. So here, I'm on a stamina sort right now, but we will be going over all the different stamina specs here. So the first thing that you're going to want to pick up first is going to be Maelstrom weapons. The Maelstrom dual wield, to be precise. The Cruel Flurry set has been pretty strong in the past, and with the new sort of changes to single target dots and how they're a lot stronger now than they used to be, Cruel Flurry is actually pretty strong now. It's actually probably the best setup for pretty much most, if not all, Stamina DPS dual wield builds. So you will want to pick up a Maelstrom dagger and a Maelstrom axe. As of the recording of this video, the Orsinium anniversary event is happening, so now is the best time to go ahead and get into Veteran Maelstrom Arena and start farming for these sets. You will want to get one sharpened weapon and then one nirn weapon. Of course, you don't have to get it to drop a nirn, you can always transmute it if you'd like, but getting it to drop a nirn would be ideal here. So nirn on the main hand and sharpened on the offhand is probably going to be the best trait combination. Another option would be precise and sharpened as well. Both of them did very well in my testing. So those would be the traits that you're going to want to go for: nirn, precise, and sharpened. You can also go double sharpened as usual. This will allow you to put a few less CP into piercing and more CPs into other passive nodes there. But generally speaking, even with adjusting for CPs, nirn, sharpened did end up beating out double sharpened here. And you do want to pick up an axe rather than two daggers, because they did buff the axe blade, which is now a fairly potent bleed now. For your back bar, the Maelstrom bow has actually been phased out now for the Master's bow instead, so you will want to pick up a Master's bow, and this is pretty much for any of the stamina builds, both dual wield, two-hand, and bow build. You will want to pick up the Master's bow. This comes from Dragonstar Arena, so base game. It will take you possibly a long time to get this, just because Dragonstar Arena is not a fast arena. If you want to get an idea of how long it takes to clear Dragonstar Arena, the fastest time I believe is about 41 minutes or so. So do keep that in mind. However, it is a 4-man arena, so you do have 4 chances at a drop here. But just like the Maelstrom bow, you will want to get it in infused, and of course you can transmute it if necessary. What this means then is that you will not be running Maelstrom sets anymore, and this is true at the very least for dual wield sets. For two-handed sets, we'll go into that a little bit, but you might still be wearing Maelstrom sets depending on specific sets that you are wearing. But for dual wield, you will want to start to pick up a Laquestes or Reliquin helmet or arm caps, or whatever other sets you want to kind of pair together. So for example, if you're running Tzogvins and Reliquins, then get either a Reliquin or Tzogvins head and shoulder pieces, because now that we're running Maelstrom Arena dual wield weapons, you will want to make sure to have both of your 5-piece sets active at all times. So you just want to make sure to get your helm and your shoulders on one of your 5-piece sets. Still using damage, health, poisons here. Not much has changed in terms of gear otherwise than what I've already mentioned. In terms of skill bars, the one thing that you're going to want to start to get used to is basically you're going to want to use Rending Slashes and Rapid Strikes here. Now, the old Maelstrom bonus where you had to do Rapid Strikes dot Rapid Strikes dot, that's not the case anymore, so you will have it completely in rotation. It's basically going to be Rapid Strikes, then up to 3 single target dots, and then Rapid Strike spam from there on out. You will always want to end your front bar rotation with a Rapid Strikes, that way you have that 4 seconds to apply any back bar dots that you might be having on your build. In terms of back bar dots, you will be dropping Caltrops. Caltrops was nerfed pretty hard in Scalebreaker, so instead you'll be using Soul Trap instead. And then instead of Endless Hail, we're going to be using Arrow Barrage instead. It lines up a little bit better with our overall rotation duration. Plus, without the Maelstrom bow, there really isn't any reason to run Endless Hail anymore. Arrow Barrage is going to be the stronger morph. Poison Injection is still here to stay. Poison Injection actually got a buff overall here. So that's pretty much how dual wield Stamina DPS is kind of played out here. Now for two-handed Stamina DPS, not much has changed. So the only thing that's really changed is instead of a greatsword, you'll be using a battle axe instead, and it will be a set. You will not be using anything like the Masters or the Maelstrom battle axe. You could if you would like, but it's generally speaking going to be a little bit weaker compared to just running a 5-piece set with a monster helm. So two-handed build, you will still be running a monster helm set, so you'll be running something like Veldreth or the new set Marsalok. Or you'll be running two different one-piece monster helm sets. So, for example, Krogs with Veldreth, if you're not running Sharpened on your front bar, or you're not running another set that has a physical penetration bonus like Tzogvin's. So the only big change that you're going to be seeing for a two-handed build would be swapping from Greatsword to Battle Axe if you have not done so already, and that Master's Bow on the back bar there. In terms of abilities, though, again, the only thing that's really changed is you're dropping Caltrops for consuming Soul Trap instead, and then Arrow Barrage instead of Endless Hail. Your front bar is still going to be pretty much exactly the same. There's not really going to be that big of a difference in front bar sets there. Now for bow builds, this is a little bit tricky because now Lightweight Beast Trap was buffed, so now it lasts for 10 seconds, so it might be better to run Lightweight Beast Trap instead of Tzogvin's now, and if you decide to do that, then you'll be able to run something like a Maelstrom and a Master's Bow, and then run two 5-piece sets, so something like Reliquens and Laquestes. So that is certainly a possibility to do that, and I haven't done extensive testing yet, but it is certainly a possibility you no longer have to run Tzogvin's as a double bow build because of the buff to Lightweight Beast Trap. But beyond that, everything pretty much remains exactly the same as I mentioned earlier, with consuming Soul Trap and Arrow Barrage. If you're running the Maelstrom bow on your bow build, then you might want to swap it to Endless Hail. However, Arrow Barrage still should be, at the very least, a little bit stronger than Endless Hail running the Maelstrom bow. But that being said, you can run either morph then if you're doing a bow build. Just keep in mind that if you do decide to swap over to dual wield or a two-handed stamina build, you'll need to swap the Endless Hail back out for Arrow Barrage. But beyond that, not much has changed. In terms of bow builds, you would still be using Snipe. You might be using Arrow Spray, or specifically Acid Spray, instead of Caltrops, but that's really kind of dependent on class. Some classes have a little bit more flexibility with slots compared to other classes. So for example, Nightblades have a little bit less flexibility just because they do have a couple class abilities that they want to put on. Kind of the same thing with Stamina Wardens there. So that's pretty much it for Stamina DPS. Now for Magicka DPS, not that much has changed overall for Magicka DPS. There are a few skills that you will want to pick up, and there is one skill flip that you're going to want to do as well. So the first thing that you want to do as a Magicka DPS is instead of Elemental Blockade, you will want to run Unstable Wall of Elements now. This one is actually significantly stronger, well not significantly, but it is noticeably stronger than Elemental Blockade now. So you won't want to swap over to that morph. The other thing is that you're going to want to pick up these couple of abilities here, and which ability you use will vary depending on your class, but you should still pick all of these up just in case you want to add them into your arsenal. Destructive Reach is the first one you're going to want to pick up under the Destro Staff line. Under the Mage's Guild line, make sure to pick up Degeneration and Scalding Rune. Degeneration here gives us a little bit of additional sustain, so your light and heavy attacks will restore 100 magicka while it is active. So all Magicka DPS should get a little bit of a boost in sustain overall, about 100 magicka per second additional regen, assuming that you're able to get pretty good light attack weaves in. Scalding Rune is just a pretty decent dot now, and for some builds, they're even considering using this as a spam build, but again, that depends on the specific class itself. Under the Undaunted line, you might want to pick up Mystic Orbs. This is actually a fairly decent damaging move, plus it also provides that combustion synergy. So it is a possibility that Magic DPS might run Mystic Orbs instead of another dot. So definitely something you want to pick up here, and that's under the Undaunted skill line. And of course, just like with Stamina DPS, you will want to pick up Consuming Trap because it is actually a pretty strong single target damage over time building now. So those are the abilities you're going to pick up as a Magic DPS. In terms of sets, in terms of gear, all that stuff has pretty much remained exactly the same. You might want to pick up a set of Zen's Redress, which is actually a fairly decent debuff support set for Magic DPS, but beyond that, that's not that much else has changed for Magic DPS. Your enchants are going to remain the same, your traits are going to remain the same, not much has changed in terms of Magic DPS, it's just your skills are going to be pretty much swapped out here and there. And that's pretty much it for what you got to prepare for DPS side of things. So real quick rundown for Stamina DPS, your typical dual wield build. You're going to need to pick up a Maelstrom set, a dual wield set, axe and a dagger. And you will want to pick up your second 5-piece set, a helm and shoulders for one of your two 5-piece sets there. For all Stamina DPS builds, you're going to want to pick up a Master's Bow, and for all of them except the Bow build, you will want to swap over from Endless Hail to Arrow Barrage. For all Stamina DPS builds, you will want to swap out Caltrops for Soul Trap. For the two-hand builds, your front bar is now going to be a Battle Axe. You'll still be using a Monster Helm set. For bow builds, you will be using a Master's and Maelstrom bow now instead of Tzogvin's, now that Lightweight's Beast Trap has been buffed. And then for Magicka DPS, you're just going to have a couple new abilities that you're going to want to fit into your overall rotation. You might be dropping a few abilities for these stronger single target dots now. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this informative, and be on the lookout for some builds starting on Monday. Hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.